Hello, and welcome to The Guru. I'm your host, Howard Falco, and I am thrilled that you're here to learn more about the potential and power of your mind and how to use it to get the most out of your experience of life. I am honored to have one of the best receivers in the NFL on the show today, Alan Lazard of the Green Bay Packers. And the great thing about Alan is that he is literally just getting started. Alan Lazard was born in Des Moines, Iowa in 1995 and attended and played football at Urbandale High School, where he set all kinds of records offensively and defensively. He holds school records in receptions, touchdowns, receiving yards, and interceptions. And he was ranked the #1 college recruit in Iowa as a senior. Alan went on to play football at Iowa State, where his success continued. After starting to break records as a freshman, Alan went on to be one of the most successful players in Iowa State history, breaking 6 of the all-time Iowa State records. And they are as follows: most career receptions with 241, most in career receiving yards with 3,360, most single season touchdowns with 10 in 2017, most consecutive games with a reception, 48 straight games, most consecutive 100-yard receiving games with 4, and most 100-yard receiving games with 12 in total. An outstanding college career. Despite these accolades, in the 2018 NFL draft, remarkably, Allen went undrafted. After the draft, the Jacksonville Jaguars acquired Allen as an undrafted free agent, and he was immediately put on the practice squad. On December 18th, 2018, he was signed by the Green Bay Packers and added to the active roster on September 4th, 2019. In his last 2 years with the Packers, Alan Lazard has emerged as a force to be reckoned with 69 catches for 935 yards and 6 touchdowns. He has quickly become one of Aaron Rodgers' favorite targets. And at the young age of 25, like I said, he is just getting started. Alan Lazard, thank you for being here and welcome to the podcast.
Howard, thanks for having me. Always good talking with you, and I'm very excited for this conversation.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I was honored to be on your podcast. For those of you who don't know, Alan has a podcast called At the Top that he just started, and I was honored to be one of the original guests. So now I'm excited to kind of turn the tables on you and pick your brain for a bit here. So yeah, I got some.
You'll be a little bit better at it than me.
You did a pretty good job. We had a great conversation, actually. That was a pretty good podcast. But I've got some interesting questions I want to ask you about mental strength and just how you used your mind going through your entire lifetime to get to where you've gotten to, and how it differentiated for you at different levels, and especially now at the top of the game in the NFL. So, I've got a lot of questions I want to ask you about how you overcame challenges, leveled your mind up to the highest level in the world. But I'll start with this one, which is a pretty big question, which is, what is the biggest challenge you've faced on your journey to becoming a professional athlete and playing in the NFL?
Biggest challenge? Wow, so many. I think my biggest challenge was probably accepting humility, accepting failure, and accepting putting myself out there and being vulnerable. Mm-hmm. So putting myself out there to be willing to make mistakes, to be willing to fail, and to be willing to be made fun of, or to be looked at or judged upon, or to be told I wasn't good enough. And I think as I've grown, more specifically, I think that part of my mental strength has really developed over the past few years, especially with the different things that I've gone through. But I think it's always kind of been there. But I think that's just one thing that I've kind of grown to love and kind of really appreciate and really find myself within that through most of my career.
Interesting. So when you say become vulnerable, you mean test your ability at the highest level and be willing to see where that ability needs to improve and get feedback and criticism, etc.
Yeah. I think it's more so like, I've always been like, let's just talk about football specifically. I've been labeled as, I'm a bigger receiver. I'm probably one of the more heavier receivers in the NFL. I'm not the fastest. I've always had this label to be a tight end and whatnot, that I couldn't play in the NFL because I wasn't too fast or too quick. I didn't have the ability and whatnot. Mm-hmm. And, I've always kind of just accepted it. And what I mean by that is just like, I've digested those and it's motivated me. So for me specifically, I never received like jet sweeps and reverses and bubble passes. And most people that probably don't, that are listening to this may not know what that is, but those types of routes or plays in football are usually for the smaller, quicker, more agile guys. And I'm not that. And I know that. And I accept that. But every time I watch film and I would see those guys making those plays, I still watch it in anticipation of me making those plays. So when the time comes, I'm able to.
Wow.
And so when I got to the NFL, I started catching bubble passes. I started taking jet sweeps. I started doing reverses. And I'd never done it my entire career. Never. Just because of I kind of had this label. And just because like the teams that I played on, it probably wasn't the best interest for me to run those at those times either. So I think it's more so in that mindset of I'm willing to do the same thing as anyone else. And whatever the results are, I'm going to be okay with, regardless of either positive or negative.
That's fascinating that you knew you didn't have the sort of the standard size for those type of plays, but you never limited yourself from the idea of running them or being capable of running them, even though that's what the vision from the coaches was, or what the history of the NFL was for
Right.
those type of plays. You went into it like, hey, why not me? Why couldn't I run those? And you ran through them in your mind and you were prepared for it mentally. And ironically, when you got to the NFL, you started doing all those things, and you were also prepared, and you didn't have this idea in your head that said you couldn't do it. So when they asked you to do it, you said, why not? I'm prepared to do that. I'm prepared to adapt. I'm prepared to evolve, or I'm prepared to be that version of myself, which is fascinating.
Yeah. And the big thing in the NFL, they say the best ability is availability. And the more you can do, makes you more available. So I've kind of really taken that whole mindset and been able to apply it within my entire game. But also I've been starting to shift that, within my daily life, starting at the top, starting a business, starting a brand, which I have no idea what I'm doing. and I'm okay to admit that, because I know that I'm not trying to, my end goal isn't like today, tomorrow, or anytime soon. Like my end goal is I can't even see that far, in the future. So it's more so just not knowing and making myself, I don't want to have any regrets of like, I didn't try it.
Wow.
I didn't put my best foot forward, or I didn't go out there and do something that I thought that would be cool or interesting or something that I would enjoy.
So is it fair to say that you're afraid of nothing?
No, I'm afraid of a lot, but I invite the afraidness and the fear in.
Wow. Now that's interesting. And I love that answer, actually, is that you're not afraid to admit you're afraid, but you do not resist that fear and you allow it to come
And that's
in.
hard too, though. Like I'm not gonna say I'm just walking around, like on a 10-story building every day, just on the edge,
right,
and whatnot. But it's hard, there's definitely challenges within that every single day, of within relationships, speaking up and having an open mind and speaking my truth and how I feel and stuff like that. So I think it varies in multiple ways, but I think the coreness of it started with football and sports, and kind of just being able to take it from the mindset of you can't do this, or you're not supposed to do this, and me saying why not, and
love it,
knowing that the why not could be them being right and me being wrong.
but regardless, you were going to do it anyway.
But regardless, I was going to do it anyways, and I was going to find out what the answer was.
Wow.
If I didn't do it, how would we know the answer?
Wow. That's right there. That's enough. Okay. We can end the podcast right there. Good. All right. Good night, everybody. That is just an awesome nugget. And I think just a beautiful way to go through life. And like you said, there's things in business, things you're doing, starting a brand, et cetera. And, I once heard a long time ago, an old motivational guy from like the 50s and 60s, his name was Zig Ziglar, say, you don't have to get it right. You just have to get it going. Mm-hmm. And I think that when you have the courage to go ahead and to do things in the world that you haven't done and you don't know about, but that you have the desire, the intention to create, and you're willing to make mistakes, or what I call learning experiences, it happens quicker for you because you acquire the information to get there a lot faster, especially from a lot faster than the people that won't even try.
Right. Right.
But I think as it relates to you playing in the NFL and doing what you're doing in the very short and powerful 2 years that you've had, I think that mindset has served you unbelievably well to be able to adapt and evolve and be, what was the word you used? Accessible, did you say?
Availability.
Availability. So you're
Yeah.
available for any type of play because you're not resistant to, or you haven't limited yourself. You're available.
Right.
And I that's a really, really powerful way to do it. So take me back a little bit. Did you always have dreams about playing professionally in the NFL when you were a little kid?
I wouldn't say necessarily football or NFL. I would say just pro sports in general. Football probably started to get formed more so in high school. Truth be told, I was, basketball has my love. Like basketball will forever be my favorite sport.
Mm-hmm.
A huge, huge basketball fan growing up and loved playing the game. And honestly, playing basketball helped me tremendously with football. Being able to take the different movements, requirements, that basketball takes and be able to translate it onto the football field. So I've always loved basketball, but at the end of the day, like I always knew that I was going to be a professional athlete in something. I just love sports. I love competing, and I knew I was good at them too. And I just always wanted to push the limit.
Did you come from a family of athletes?
Yes. So my dad actually played at Iowa State.
That's right.
He was recruited.
Mm-hmm.
He was, I think it was after signing day, or maybe it was right before signing day when he was back in high school, that Iowa State called him. He grew up in Houston, and he moved to Bellflower, California, kind of right outside of LA or inside LA, inner city, and got a call. So he only had one scholarship offer, ended up going to Iowa State, playing there, becoming a captain by his senior year. Met my mom, and they kind of just stayed close because my mom's family is from that area, and he just raised me to love football and to love Iowa State. And so that's all I've known really growing up, but it's always been sports for sure.
So you answered a question I was going to ask down the line here when it came to where you were going to go to school. Like that, there was only one place. Is that correct?
Yeah, yes and no. I get this question a lot because, like you said, I was the number one recruited player out of high school during my class, and that carries some weight. You look at states like Florida, Texas, California, where there's hundreds of kids going Division I, every single year. With Iowa State, there's probably or not Iowa State, the state of Iowa, there's probably, I think, 10 of us that year that went Division I. So me staying at Iowa State, it was very questionable at the time. They had just come off of a 3-9 season when I was going to be enrolling. But my brother was already enrolled there. And when I closed my eyes, the only uniform I could vision myself in was the cardinal gold at Iowa State. And as much as it felt wrong, especially as a young kid with temptations, and especially with recruiting and social media now, it's all the bells and whistles you see around, like, this school's better, this school's better, this school's better. But my heart just kept
sunny weather.
Yeah, right. Getting out to some better locations. But I just always knew Iowa State was a place for me. And weathering on that decision, I weathered on that decision a little bit in high school before I initially signed my papers and everything. But like I said, when I closed my eyes, I just knew that's where I wanted to go, and that's where I should have went.
Gotcha. Was there certain key things that you think your parents instilled in you when you were younger about life or sports?
I think treating people with respect. I think that's something that, not only my parents, but my grandparents, I think they did a great job of just raising me. My grandpa's probably one of the hardest workers I've known. So he was a huge inspiration for me. He was a farmer, came up from a poor family. And just kind of his whole life story is a very huge inspiration for me to see how he built himself. And, he ended up having pancreatic cancer a few years before he had passed away. And, up until 6 months before he passed, he was out in the farm, in the field, working still.
Wow.
And just kind of just knowing his work ethic and how he carried himself, remembering those times helps me get through times that I think that are hard, whether they're physically or mentally or emotionally.
That's great. And that brings me to my next question. Was there a time when you were in college where you questioned whether or not you were going to get to the next level, or where you felt there was a point at which your confidence actually went up, and you knew one way? Was there one way or the other on that?
Yeah, I was a little hesitant first going there and everything, just because it's a whole new level of play.
Mm-hmm.
You go from having a couple hundred people's in the stands to about 50, 60,000.
Yeah,
There's
right.
lights, there's interviews, it's a different life, so it's kind of hard to really know what you're going to get yourself into. But I think I had really good success early on in my career. I instilled a lot of confidence in myself, and I've always had a great support system with my family since growing up, and then going to Iowa State and still receiving that, but then from a broader audience, I think even held me to account, made myself accountable, because then I knew I was going to be disappointing other people, and that just didn't resonate with me very well. But I think kind of going towards the end of my career, because I wasn't on Sports Center all the time, I wasn't the one on the ESPN headliners and the clickers and stuff. I always thought of myself as a lesser in a sense, because I wasn't in the mainstream media, even though I knew I was good enough, and I couldn't really understand the whole media side of things when it comes to sports and everything. So there was some doubt within that. And then especially on the day I went undrafted, that's when I was pretty rock bottom, as far as
Yeah.
not questioning on what my worth is, my value,
Yeah. I
and
want to get to that for sure.
and
Yeah.
like on how what was my future going to hold, because like I said, ever since a little kid, I knew I was going to play professional sports, and there's only one day you can get drafted, in your entire life. You can't go back and go get redrafted now. So
Right.
kind of having that day and being crushed, left me at a very weak and vulnerable state.
So I want to come back to, I want to ask you about that particular day, but it's interesting because obviously you had a great freshman year at Iowa State. You broke some freshman records, and then you just started to just explode. And I would imagine that the confidence would have came up regardless whether the media was covering everything. And a lot of that has to do with, marketing research on what they cover and how that affects
Right.
their audience. Right. And, Iowa State,
And
not
we weren't
unlike,
successful. We were horrible. We won
yeah.
8 games my first 3 years.
Wow.
So when
So
that's
another
the
reason.
case, that's a huge influence on why
Yep.
that was a thing as well. I'm not appearing on college football Saturday night, ESPN. We're playing at 11 o'clock on Fox Sports.
Exactly.
It's not as marketable program at the time and everything too.
But you had to know still with what you were doing that it was building your resume for that potential to get drafted. And I mean, regardless of what the team was doing, you were standing out from a standpoint of your offensive production, correct?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So take me to that day. So obviously you have a great career. You graduate. Did you have your expectation on being drafted? Obviously, based on your response, you did. And take me through that day.
So I had so the way the NFL draft works is that it's 3 days. The first day, Thursday, is first round only.
Yep.
Day 2 is Friday, so it's rounds 2 and 3, and then day 3 of the draft Saturday is rounds 4 through 7. And excuse me, I was expected or predicted to go around rounds 4 or 5. I was very ambitious and was thinking I was going to go on Friday in the second and third round, just because of that's how I viewed myself, especially when I compared myself to the other wide receivers and talent at the time. I ended up having a draft party on Saturday, because I was predicted to go 4th, 5th round. So I thought, if I go earlier than that, cool. Like I was with my family and friends for those first 2 days, just a small group of people. So if something, did miraculously happen, I'd be able to celebrate with people that I love to care about. And Saturday, I ended up having a draft party where I invited some coaches, former teammates, and whatnot. It was actually at the Buffalo Wild Wings in Ames.
Mm-hmm.
So the half of the restaurant was open to the public at the time too. So there was,
Wow.
a full restaurant. So I had, friends and family coming, visiting, talking to me, saying hi and everything. That, obviously everyone's excited, everyone's antsy to know where I'm going to be going. And, as the rounds kept going and realizing that other guys that I've never heard of that, were getting drafted, it kind of started to settle in. Like, is this really a possibility? Because it never once in my mind crossed my mind that it would be.
Mm-hmm.
And so after the draft, when I realized that, I am undrafted, no team wanted me, no team thought I was good enough to be allotted one of the draft spots, that hurt because I didn't see it coming at all. And so that night, I remember like I was planning to go out with friends, celebrate, do all this and that. And I just went home and just laid in my bed all night. I questioned life. I questioned myself, what I was doing, what my future was going to entail.
Mm.
And it was low. It was a rough night, but it took a while to bounce back from, for sure.
And then what happened after that? Jacksonville called.
So we actually, before the draft even ended, it's kind of crazy. Before the draft even ended, my agent and I had a really good idea that I was going to go to Jacksonville. When you're undrafted, you get to choose what team you get to go to, which is somewhat of an advantage, I guess. And Jacksonville was the only team that saw me as a wide receiver. And so that's the reason why I went there, because like I said, a lot of teams or a lot of people have always given me the label of being a tight end because I'm a bigger wide receiver. At way more, I'm not fast enough. I was good at blocking. That's just how they saw me. So because Jacksonville was the only team that saw me as a wide receiver, that's why I ended up going there.
Gotcha. Okay. And then did that make you feel better that you were signed with them, or were you still like unsure of how that path was going to unfold?
Still very unsure because I didn't even know how the whole process worked. The hardest thing about, I think, going to the NFL was that I didn't know anyone who had walked down that path before, and no one I could really reach out to for information, for guidance, for mentorship or anything. So I was really kind of walking into Jacksonville by myself, literally, on how to come out alive in a sense. So going down there, I was obviously very ambitious and didn't realize the biggest surprise for me was by the end of training camp is when they cut down the roster from 90 to the 45 or 48 man roster, whatever, 50 man rosters, that how many people get cut, everything. So I didn't realize going into Jacksonville and going into camp. So going into there, I still was very ambitious and thought very highly that I was going to make the team, and didn't understand that they only, kept 5 receivers and there was 10 of us. And I knew I was better than 5 or 6 of them for sure. But then I didn't realize that on, kind of how politics play into things, on who's getting paid, veterans, different positions that the coach or the GM.
It doesn't change from Pop Warner all the way up, does it?
No, it really doesn't, and like I said, like I didn't know that.
Right.
So going into camp and everything, once I got cut, which I kind of, towards the end of camp, I kind of knew I was going to get cut, and I knew I was going to be able to make the practice squad. And I was somewhat okay with that. Like, that's at least giving me, my foot in the door. I'm starting off with the team.
Well, that's a great attitude. Yeah.
And I knew that a lot of guys, in football, unfortunately, it's inevitable that people get hurt all the time. And that it only takes, one guy getting hurt, not be able to play this week, whatever it may be, then you get the call up and then you're good, because I knew all I needed was a shot. I knew all I needed was one game, a couple passes thrown to me, and I was going to be able to prove to them that I was going to be able to stay at that level.
Wow. Let's stop right there, because I want to talk about that. That is some amazing belief and energy and a sense of confidence in, hey, give me my opportunity. This is my whole life, and I'll make it happen. And there's probably a lot of faith involved in that. But the faith, I think, comes from the preparation, all the work you've done, the belief in yourself, that all builds to that faith. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, absolutely. I think it, and when I did get to Jacksonville, my mindset changed. I realized that I'm not who I thought I was. And I think that was, it took a while for me to look the man in the mirror and to be able to accept that and to be able to have that humiliation of being on the practice squad where you have to do everything. You're the offensive players, you're the defensive players, you're
Right.
the special teams, you're the show team for everything, and it's just, especially with the whole hierarchy with vets and stuff, like I'm a rookie as well. So that's where I stand on the totem pole of everything. And kind of just being able to kind of figure that out and be able to feel that out and understand what my position was. And then, seeing other people in the position that I wanted to be in and watching how they operated, watching how they moved, how they carried themselves in the locker room, on the field.
Fascinating. So obviously that made you better, even with the success in college, coming up, having a dose of humility, being put on the practice squad. And what you did was, which I love, I'm going to use the word, your awareness went, big time. Like you watched very carefully and absorbed everything you could.
Absolutely. I've always been a very observant person.
That's huge.
And I've always lived my life in a sense, in a fact-based life. So if I see that it works, I know it can work for me as well. So I see Calais Campbell, being one of the first guys in the locker room every day. Okay, this guy's, multi-pro or all-pro team, making a lot of money. This is something that he's doing very well. Okay, this is how I see how Jalen Ramsey practices every single day. Okay, this is what I need to do. You know what I'm saying? Oh, this is how I see someone else, practicing or carry themselves in the locker room. This is what the coaches are saying about them. Okay, so I need to steer away from that. So I think that's kind of how I really maneuver in life.
Yeah.
Of just like being very receptive of things around me, and trying to digest whether they're good or bad, or whether they're for me or not.
Yeah.
And I think that's really kind of how I've grown really since Jacksonville to be in the position I am today.
That's amazing. And I think that comes from a burning desire to get to where you want to go to. And that burning desire not only shows in your physical work that you do, but in your mind and how you're watching and picking up information, and you're not missing a thing because you want to use every second to collapse time, so to speak, to get yourself to where you want to go. And I think it's amazing. You did that extremely efficiently.
Don't have a lot of time. The NFL stands for not for long, and I knew the average career was 2 years. So, I've already surpassed the average NFL career, and I'm nowhere near where I thought I would be or where I should be. So I think, it's the scariness of that really kind of pushed me and got me going.
But now, I mean, hopefully those limits are gone, and now you don't have a limit on yourself as far as time frame, how long you can play. I mean, there's plenty of receivers that have long careers in the NFL. I think, any type of limiting thought is dangerous, especially to an athlete. Your mind has to be pure and open.
Right.
But at that time it wasn't. And that kind of leads me to another question. But before you got to the NFL, were you doing any work at all on mindfulness, mental state, anything at all?
If I was doing it subconsciously.
Okay.
I wasn't very aware of it, per se. I think I've always manifested. I think that's something I've always done from a very young age, of always wanting more and dreaming of having more of something that I didn't have or wanted to achieve.
And what do you think the key was in that manifesting?
The key to it? I think it kind of goes back to how I first originally said, like, how I've always been labeled that I couldn't do something, that I would never be able to be this.
So that lit the fire, so to speak.
Yeah. I think I don't do well with people telling me what I can and can't do.
I love it.
I just don't.
Great. Yeah.
And I wish it carries over too much into my personal relationships too, where like I have my friends or family members that are saying things that are very beneficial for me, and it's out of pure love and kindness. But sometimes the athlete and that mindset just kind of kicks in, and it blocks it out. Like, don't say that. I can't let, I don't let myself digest negative thoughts. And not that those are negative thoughts or actions or words.
Limiting.
Exactly. And so I think that's just kind of like where it just naturally just kicks on and I can't control it sometimes.
Yeah, it's a huge trait of all the high performers that I've worked with is that you tell them they can't do something, watch.
Right.
And it's, yeah, so that makes perfect sense. So you're at Jacksonville. You're on the practice squad. Take it from there.
I'm on the practice squad the whole year. Or not the whole year. It was till week 16, I believe, is when I got a call from the Packers. But that entire season, like I said, I was literally going to the week. So our weeks would start on Wednesdays, basically. Wednesdays, we start practice in preparation for the game Sunday. And I would know on Wednesday and Thursday that I was going to die. That practice was going to be that hard because first of all, it's so hot in Jacksonville.
Wow.
The humidity's crazy.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I grew up
I'm an Iowa boy from the Midwest, so that was a huge adjustment for one. And then just the intensity of practice, that was something I wasn't used to as well. Was just at that much of a higher level than what I was accustomed to. So going down there and essentially just being the guy having to take every single rep,
Yep.
Like I knew Wednesdays and Thursdays were going to kill me and I had to treat my body right. So I think that's where I started focusing more on my diet and what I was eating, what I was consuming, because I knew that if I didn't take those things on Monday, Tuesday, or Wednesday, that, I was going to reap the repercussions on the following day and whatnot. But yeah, that was hard. It was tough because we were losing a lot too. And usually when things go bad in a business, they always look for a change. They always look for something to replace, to fix it, to get something going. And I was watching my friends, teammates, other guys get called up, get the call to go to play for Jacksonville, play for other teams, wherever it may be. And I just kept, just waiting. And I'll never forget, like I'll never forget when I got the phone calls, because it was a Tuesday. I believe it was a Tuesday or it was a Monday. And I had just finished my practice squad workout and I went back home and I was playing Fortnite with one of my friends. And I checked my phone and my agent had called and texted me and said that Green Bay wants to activate you. Give me a call. And it came out of came at the most unexpected time.
Interesting. Things happen when you expect it. Yeah.
And it was very hurtful too at the time, because for me, my goal was that first year, all I needed to do was get an accredited season. So to get an accredited season, you had to play 3 games on active roster. The week prior would have been week 15 or week 15 or 16. Week 15. The new season got me messed up on how many games we played.
Yeah.
But week 15 at the time. So I knew there was 3 weeks left. So if I got activated for those last 3 games, I would get that accredited season. And essentially my whole practice squad year wouldn't be a waste. So that week goes and pass, and we're in the last 2 weeks of the season. So even if Jacksonville wants to call me or whatever team, like, it's essentially a wash, because those 2 games don't count for anything. And I basically have to start at step 1 again. So the Packers ended up calling the next week, whatever. And at the time I'm like, hell yeah. Like where I was mentally in Jacksonville was somewhere I don't have a lot of memories from there, just because of like that time was so low to me, because I didn't feel like I was who I was or who I thought I was. And I wasn't getting the gratification that I was used to.
Right. They weren't seeing you for who you thought you were.
Correct. And, and then, I mean, just especially with social media and stuff nowadays, it's like, you go playing 4 years, you're a starter for 4 years. And then in a sense, you fall off the face of the earth because you're not playing anymore. So I'm not getting the text, the good luck text, the good games, those type of things that before I kind of pushed aside, that, I realized how much, that helped me and helped motivate me. And I appreciated those things. So getting that call, definitely, like, once I got that call, that was it. Like I knew like my time started now, and that this was going to be my only opportunity, and I couldn't let it go to waste.
Interesting.
So,
Just to clarify something, did you say that when you get enthusiasm from people on social media, that helps you?
in a sense, yes and no. I wouldn't say social media, more like text or
Oh,
like
that's
from
okay.
family members.
Right.
So it's
Okay.
like,
That
so it's
that
more
makes
so
sense.
like, my mom's not texting me good luck today when I'm not playing.
Right.
You know what I'm
Right.
saying? So
Yep.
the people that I really care about, and then that order. I mean, now granted, yes, the Twitter mentions and stuff, like I'm not going to sit here and act like I don't notice them or don't see them and don't
Right.
read them, but it's not, I'm not invested in that
Right.
end of the
Right.
day.
It's yeah. Gotcha.
So
And that's good. Yeah.
yeah, you're right.
As we know, you get all types from all over the
Oh yeah,
spectrum there. Yeah.
yeah,
It's crazy.
yeah. Because if you invest too much in social media, then you're giving them the control, and that's
Exactly.
something I really learned, is that I'm in control of all my emotions and stuff. And so if I want to
Yes.
make myself vulnerable in that sense, I have to be able to give my emotions to someone I can trust.
Yep.
And so I don't do that with social media. So I treat social media
Good.
than most people do. And I like to have fun with it, joke
Yeah.
around,
Yeah.
show people who I want to show of who I am.
Yeah. You're
I'm
in
not gonna I'm
control
not
of it.
gonna put everyone or put my entire self out there on social media
Right.
for people to pick apart. But
No, but
going
you give
back
them a
to
peek.
right.
Yeah.
Show them a
You
little
give,
preview.
yeah, you give them a peek of your personal life every now and then, or what you're doing, or what's up. And I think that's a great way to handle it. And so many people get drawn into and the drama of it, and they don't realize they have all the control. So that's great.
Right. Right.
So Green Bay picks you up.
So Green Bay calls, right?
Oh,
So
Green
I
Bay calls.
Green Bay calls the next day. I'm on a 6 a.m. flight to Green Bay. And like I said, I knew this was the time. Like there's 2 weeks left in the season. Green Bay at the time was already eliminated from the playoffs. So they had 2 more games left, and that was it. They had the Jets and then the Lions. Um, so me going to Green Bay, I mean, I'm a whole brand new team. I don't know anyone there. New locker room, new coach. They had just fired their coach actually. So
Mm-hmm.
they were going through a whole coaching change. So I'm going to a team where I want to impress the coaches that might not even be here. So it's kind of a weird situation. So I knew that because the coaches could be there, couldn't be there, I needed to impress the people that were going to be there. And so one, I started with my teammates, most importantly. And then two, I focused on leaving a good impression just around the building, treating people the right way,
Wow.
respectable and
Great.
whatnot. And showing people that I work. I think that's something that I've always respected. Like
Mm-hmm.
going back to my grandpa, who's someone who's a very hard worker and a very well respected man, not only by my family but just in the community and with his interactions in business as well. So those 2 weeks, I just grinded. I dove into the playbook and I thought I could learn it. I did, trying to learn a whole new playbook. Well, the thing was too is that it's not that I couldn't learn the playbook, is I had to learn a playbook and then I had to learn Aaron Rodgers' playbook as well.
Right.
And that's combining two different worlds.
Yeah, we're gonna get to that.
and trying to understand that in a very short period of time.
Yeah.
And the thing is too, when Green Bay made me active, I don't know if I'm suiting up or not. I don't know if I'm going to play. I don't know. No one really came in to be like, hey, this is what your role will be the next 2 weeks. And you'll be taking this amount of snaps and doing this, blah, blah, blah. All that's up in the air. So I'm preparing as if I'm going to have to play 30, 40, 50 snaps, because the worst thing I could do is not prepare for that and that be the case. And then once again, I just waste my opportunity.
Yeah, and I think that's the epitome of, people say, you hear this bite line all the time, ask or act as if. But I think that's the epitome of it right there. Is the action as if is preparing in your mind and your body, intellectually, everything you had to do to be ready to play. Just like you prepared to play a position that you didn't necessarily think,
Right.
or the NFL didn't necessarily prototype you as.
Right.
And I think that in itself sends out an energy. This kind of goes to my work on intention, that I think intention has a lot of power to it, a lot of creative power. And just being ready sends an intention out that on a subconscious level is felt by coaches, is felt by your teammates, that this guy's ready.
Right.
And you can't put your finger on why, but it really comes from within you saying, this is who I am, this is what I'm going to do, and being relentless on that idea of yourself, not only in your mind, but in how you're prepared.
Correct.
Yeah.
And so one person that I knew that I should watch as soon as I got there was Aaron, obviously. Someone that was very well respected in our profession, someone that I idolized growing up, someone that I respected a lot. So when I first got there, going into college, they always say freshmen should be seen, not heard. And they say that about rookies too. And I knew one thing too, is that I did not want to piss off any vets. I wanted to make sure that I was on all their good terms and everything, because who knows what vets at some given time, would want to put their arm around me and bring me along and help me and show me the way. So I always treated everyone with a lot of respect and with the mindset of, I don't want to burn any potential future bridges. So I went there, and like I said, I was 12, 13 hours of the day, whatever. I'm grinding football, trying to learn the playbook. I'm going out there and practice, not even knowing the plays. Coaches are telling me as I'm running, breaking the huddle and stuff. And, all I wanted to do was just show that I could play, show that what my value was and everything. And so for those 2 weeks, the first week I didn't suit up at all. They already had the receivers and whatnot, but Devontae ended up getting hurt in that game, I believe. And then so there was another receiver spot open that needed to be filled for the final game of the season. And so consequently, they activated me. Now, going into the game, I thought I was going to get a good amount of playing time because I think there's only 5 of us. But coincidentally, we had probably one of the worst offensive games in Green Bay Packer history. We couldn't get a first down. So no receivers were getting tired. No one needed rotation. And eventually, I think it was like maybe the third quarter, fourth quarter, we were getting a drive going, and I finally got one play. I come in, and the ball actually ends up coming to me. I catch the ball. The DB comes and hits me. And when he hits me, he ends up like dislocating his shoulder. Wow. So the refs stopped the game, the trainers come attend to him and everything. And then I get subbed out because it was a timeout. So someone else came back in. And that was it. We couldn't get anything else going the rest of the game. But I had that one play and that one catch. And to me, that's still my greatest accomplishment.
Wow.
Because of the time that and the dedication I put in to make myself be ready for that situation, and then for it to come about and to do those things. That's something that I was just very proud of myself for, something I'm still very proud of, because I know the work and the time and dedication I put in to do that and to get there.
Wow. Interesting. So in essence, that one catch was almost like a catalyst for you mentally.
Yes.
That kind of was like this ray of hope kind of for you.
Solidified. Yeah. I mean, I can now say I played in a game. I have a statistic in a game that you can't take that away.
Right. All the work to get to that point culminated
just to get
in
one
that
play.
One play, all those hours, all that blood, sweat, and tears, all the tough days in Jacksonville, that one play. And in essence, probably after that, there was something that shifted in you. Some relaxation may not be the right word, but some breath you were able to take.
Yeah, it was a milestone. I think I go through life with checkpoints, and I don't really necessarily declare them checkpoints in the moment. I think it's something I kind of look back on and like, okay, that was a checkpoint. That was where I kind of made a huge shift, and looking back, if that was an accomplishment. And so I've just kind of always kind of been able to, the way I kind of attack life is, I focus on small picture all the time, small picture. I don't want to get too far ahead of myself, because when I do, that's when I kind of get off course, and then, I'm trying to do too many things at once.
Right.
So I try to just kind of keep my mind frame small picture, but always with the big picture mentality of, knowing what I'm doing in the moment
Right.
It's just a small, fine detail of what the everlasting outcome will be.
Yeah. It's interesting. There's a hike here, Camelback Mountain here in Arizona. And I know it's always a big mistake to look at the top when I'm hiking because I just want to look at the next step. What's my next step? Where am I going from here? And then before you know it, you stop to take a little rest and you realize you're more than halfway up the mountain. But I think that's the power of just focusing on what the next step is in the process that you want to do. Who do you want to be? Let's go right now, this moment. That's what matters. It's okay to do long-term planning and have dreams and visions, but in the daytime, it's go to work and let the process get you there or take care of itself, so to speak. So you had that one catch, and now you've spent a little bit of time in the NFL. So I want to ask you this question. What do you think is the biggest difference between the college level and the NFL level?
Mental. And mental toughness is only probably like, maybe 20-30% of that. And what I mean by mental is the intuitiveness you need to have, the whereabouts, the complexity of offenses and defenses, and the manipulation that teams try against you, and to be able to adjust on the fly. Because it is you have an entire team that all we do is football.
Right.
Growing up, I was going to school, doing this, that, football was always kind of a hobby, but now it's like football is everyone's life. And so it's just at a very much higher level than what you really what you probably could have expected going into it, just because you've never seen that level of
awareness
awareness, focus, and
quickness of mind.
Yeah. So I think that was probably the biggest challenge, because there's talent in the collegiate level. There's people are very talented all over the country. It's what separates college and NFL is the knowledge, the mental game. Are you able to learn the plays? Because sometimes they call 2 plays, sometimes they call 3 plays at once, and you got to know, if we get this, we're going to run this. If we get that, we're going to run this.
Right. You got to read the situation every single moment.
And then you have to listen to Aaron if he wants to do whatever he wants to do, drop something in the dirt, and you got to know exactly what it means. And so I think that was probably, that still is, one of the biggest challenges, is for 11 people all to be on the same page and to maneuver like a well-oiled machine simultaneously. And sometimes you get a glimpse of that when you see 70-yard runs break out, or a kick return or something, very exciting plays, because it's such a rarity and such a complex sport that it's hard to get all 11 people to be able to work where, none of their guys tackle the guy with the ball.
Yeah, where they all execute. Yeah, exactly. Where everything comes together perfectly in that moment, right? For a play. So obviously you brought up Aaron Rodgers, and first tell me a little bit, before I ask you a couple of questions about him and what you feel makes him great. Tell me about what happened after that catch and, the following season. You got your opportunity, you start to get in the rotation. How did that unfold?
So I got that catch, whatever, season's over, and I knew I was coming back in April. That's when we started off-season training. So I knew I had time to work out. I had time. The biggest thing for me was getting to the off-season, because that was the first time in my life ever where I could, like you said, in a sense, relax. I'd always been going to school, football, whatever, and now I'm an adult. I have money in my pocket, and there's no one to tell me when I need to be up, where I need to go. Yeah. And so that was a challenge, but a blessing at the same time. It's something that I had to learn how to balance my priorities, and how to separate my needs from my wants. So going into the off season, that was somewhat of a challenge until I got back to Green Bay. Then I get back to Green Bay, and I was living in a hotel for early April or mid-April to early June. So about 8 to 10 weeks, I think, or so. And living in that hotel, was uncomfortable. I didn't we would sleep in a hotel bed. It wasn't the nicest.
Mm-hmm.
Doing laundry wasn't easy. There's a lot of things that for me, I'm such a big, like, my home is my sanctuary. So like
Right.
everything, I disconnect from the world in my home and everything. So living in a hotel for 8 to 10 weeks, it's hard to create that hominess and, that be able to disconnect and to separate work from play and all this and that. So being in there motivated me plenty just because I'd want to get out of there. I didn't have money to go get another apartment or wherever to have another house. And so that just motivated me during that time period. But like I said, kind of going back, is that when I came back is when I really started to hone in and to watch the vets, how they moved, how they operated, what foods were they eating, what were they eating for breakfast, what would they eat post practice, what recoveries were they doing, what extra, that was the biggest thing I noticed that. And when I got to Green Bay was that everyone, after the lift was over, a lot of people were staying in the weight rooms and getting extra work in, doing their own whatever work they wanted, their shoulders, ankles, knee mobility, whatever it was. So I'm like, oh, okay. So like, I need to start doing that. And so I just kind of, in a sense, followed the vets around and kind of manipulated or copied exactly what they were doing and saw a lot of benefits from it. So I kind of just stuck with that kind of mindset and formed it to my personal, wants and needs and what I felt helped and benefited me the most.
Gotcha. And go ahead. And then the season starts.
So yeah, the season starts. So I'll take you back a little bit before that. We go into camp. I'm going to camp, well, the biggest thing too before getting ahead, because I was on the active roster, because I played at the end of the season, I thought coming back, I was going to be in the starting or in the active roster lineup. I come back and I'm on the bottom of the depth chart for everything. And that was, that's 4 months of me thinking and visualizing, me as an active player on the roster, me as a potential starter the upcoming season. And so kind of going back to the living in the whole hotel thing is that, I got to start over again. I got to show these people what I'm worth, what my value is, and what can I do for this team. So I had a pretty good off season leading into camp. And then camp is where I made strides because I am a bigger guy. Putting the pads on helps a lot, especially in such a physical sport. So I was able to make a lot of strides personally during camp, and enough to get Aaron's approval. Aaron publicly said multiple times that he was very impressed by my performance, that he thought that I had the best camp out of all the wide receivers. I had a bunch of other coaches, a lot of the social media hype was there too. Everyone was kind of tooting my horn. So come cut time, where they cut down the roster to 51, I was very, very confident that I was going to make the team. And I'll never forget, again, I was sitting at the time in Kevin King's house watching Iowa State play versus UNI when I got a call to come bring my iPad in because I was going to get released. And it hit me out of left field once again. And so very fortunately, being with Kevin and just the amazing human being that he is, we were able to kind of have a talk and help me digest the entire situation. And, he kind of pushed me and helped motivate me to be where I am today as well, just from that certain day. So I get cut. I end up getting signed back on the active roster within a week. So in all reality, me getting cut really wasn't a thing because I didn't miss any games. I ended up playing the first week and everything. So
but
it was kind of
after you had all this social media, after Aaron Rodgers touted you,
correct.
and your coaches. Wow. So once again, you were tested for a brief moment.
Yes. And I remember like being in the shower or going to the shower one day, and it was right after I got cut, but I ended up signing back to the practice squad. Just like I did in Jacksonville the year before, but just with the Packers this time, with the same mindset of, okay, eventually I'm gonna get my shot. And by the end of that week, they ended up, calling me up and using me for the rest of the season and whatnot. But the first 5 weeks of the season, I believe, they didn't allow me to run a route. And I took like complete humiliation with that, because there's a few plays that I had played, and they were all blocking plays and like in protection plays, like where I'm standing next to the tight end, and no other receiver on our team has done anything like that.
So just to be clear again, there you are, tested again, right?
Correct.
Something else thrown in your way to test you, your resolve,
Correct.
your belief, your dream.
Right. And
wow,
it was them putting me in a box, them limiting me, them valuing me at this level. And so once again, like I said, in Jacksonville, all I needed was an opportunity, a chance.
Wow.
And I knew it was eventually going to come, because I knew I put the work in. I knew I have the ability to do it. Like you did how you started the show off. You listed numerous accolades.
Right.
But me breaking records, me having success isn't anything new to me. I'm just in a different tier, different level of play at the time.
But still, everything you've been through, you still had to have the belief that you were going to get to where you wanted to go, regardless of the fact that after camp you were cut again, regardless of the fact that when you got in, they were putting you in a box, weren't letting you run routes, had you on blocking assignments almost every play that you were in. And yet you still believed, correct?
Correct.
All right. I just want to make sure that's clear for everybody listening.
Right.
Okay.
So the first 5 weeks go by. I play a couple plays. The plays that they do put me in, just blocking, protection, whatever it was. And then it comes the Monday night game, week 6 versus the Lions. And I remember running out of the tunnel. I'm like, wow, like it kind of hit me like, this is Monday Night Football. Like, this is my first Monday Night Football game. This is primetime TV. I'm here playing for the Packers. Like, this is a very humbling moment.
So gratitude.
Very an immense amount of gratitude hit me.
Cool. Wow.
And I felt it. And I was just like so thankful at that.
Very powerful moment in your life. Yeah.
And it turned out to be, probably the most important days or more important games of my career, because it kind of just catapulted me to where I am today. And the first 3 quarters didn't play at all. Same thing as the last 5 weeks. Wasn't getting any reps. Offensively, I played special teams. And so I knew, if I was still able to, given the opportunity to play on special teams, I was going to play my hardest. I was going to do my best to make sure the coaches noticed me, and that, I add value to the team. And so, at the end of the day, all I do is care about winning. So I don't care about my stats. I just want to play. I know I'm good. So I know selfishly I want to be
Hold on. Stop right there. You got to repeat that, because this is something I teach relentlessly to my athletes on team sports, which I think is the number one intention was what? Did you say winning?
Winning, yes.
Helping your team win was not your stats. Correct. I think that's a really, really important thing.
And that was taught to me at a very young age by my dad, 100%. That was something that he instilled in me when it comes to sports. And I think something that my parents instilled in me just from a general human standpoint of just not being selfish. So I've never really been a selfish person. And at times that's gotten the best of me because I've been vulnerable in that sense. But as I've grown, I've learned how to, at what times I do need to be selfish.
Right. But always under the cover of selflessness.
Right. I've always been selfish in the mindset of helping. It's what's best for the other.
In the self. Right. Exactly. I think that's really, really well said. And generations over, the last 20 years of generations have not gone that direction. That's why I've been relentless with, especially with my younger athletes that are on team sports. Like, hey, the number one thing should be a team win, first of all. And then secondarily is what you do to help the team win.
And it's hard to understand and to be able to digest that, especially at a young age, because you see the Steph Currys, you see the Aaron Rodgers, you see the Tavon, or Tyreek Hills,
the highlight plays that,
everyone wants that. There's nothing wrong with that either. There's nothing wrong with wanting to be those people or to have that play and to get that gratification. But you have to know that at the same time, you have to be willing to sacrifice that for the betterment of the team. Great because point. You only go as far as the team does.
Wow.
And so once you realize that, it's going to help you get a lot further individually as well.
Really well said. Awesome stuff. Awesome.
So kind of going back to the Monday night game.
Yeah.
I wasn't playing offensively at all. And going into that game, our star receiver, Devontae, was hurt. He had gotten hurt the week before, so he was already out. Another receiver had a banged up ankle, I believe. And then another guy got clocked pretty hard in the game and was sidelined. So I think we're down to like 3 guys, me being one of them. Mm-hmm. And a few plays happened where one of the receivers didn't make the best play and caused a turnover. And so Aaron comes back to the sideline and basically requests the coach, hey, put him in so we can win the game. Put 13 in.
Those were exact words. Put him in so we can win the game.
I'm not going to repeat his exact words.
But something like that.
Right? The PG version of what he said.
That's what you mean. Okay, gotcha.
Yes. That's exactly what he said.
That's awesome.
The PG version
I love it.
Was to put 13 in the game. And
gotcha. Cool.
I'll never forget because I'm sitting on the bench. I have my helmet still on because, at any given moment, it could go in the game. So, we're going through a drive and we just had a turnover. So I sit down on the bench. He comes to the sideline. I hear him screaming this at the coaches at the sideline. And it dawns on me again. This is your time. This is the moment.
Wow.
He's calling on me and kind of just getting the sense of gratitude of like what that meant for me at that time and how powerful it was is that, okay, like whatever I have to leave out there on the field. And so the next drive, we end up getting the ball back. We go down the field and we end up getting like a penalty, or they end up getting a penalty, saying the drive, and it's a third and long. And I remember like he called the play before, and he threw the ball to me. First pass he ever threw to me. I jump up, I catch it. And it's like this is how I prefer every pass for me to be able to go out jump any DB. Use my body, my height to my advantage. And the DB makes a great play, breaks up the ball. And I remember thinking like, there it was. That was the one shot that I had. So I knew that given the opportunity again, I wasn't going to let that be the same outcome. So I get back to the huddle and I'm dog tired, like one of the most tired I've ever been. But once again, like I said, I was going to leave it all out there. And he ends up calling a play where I have to run it out and up. And we're like at just across the 50. So me running it out and up is going to be quite a lengthy route. Mind you, it's third down too. So if we don't convert this, we're coming off the field. We're already losing. Lots at stake here. And he calls the play for me to run the out and up. And I knew him calling that means that he was going to throw it. Mm-hmm. And so when the ball was snapped, I just put my head down and ran as fast as I could. And by the time I could finish my double move, I looked back, the ball was coming perfectly right into my hands. And wow. I was able to make a great play from an even better pass. And I think that bond and that trust between him and I really formulated and started right then and there. And I think kind of the rest is just history from then on. We ended up going and winning the game. Mason has a game-winning field goal. I end up playing the next week and, obviously a starter now.
Wow. What an absolutely incredible story. Thank you for sharing that. That was really cool.
Very lengthy, but yeah.
No, but every moment was important in that story. And so much behind it from a standpoint of work and faith and belief. And again, one more time, you were tested again when the DB makes a great play on your first play, breaks it up, and you thought that was the shot, but it wasn't. And that's one of the great things about life. I think you never know when another opportunity is coming your way. And and it did. And like you said, the rest is history. So that was obviously a huge game. And you went on to have a incredible season last year, which cemented you, I think, as one of his favorite guys. And speaking of Aaron Rodgers, obviously I couldn't go this interview without asking you just a couple questions about him. What do you think it is that makes him great? What do you think are some of the key factors that make Aaron Rodgers great? Around him,
competitiveness for one. I think he's a super competitive person, and you can kind of tell that. I mean, he just hosted Jeopardy. Why?
Yeah, right.
For what other reason other than his own personal belief that, you know, I can do it. I'm smart enough to do it. You know, I have the talent and the whereabouts to do it. So that's something that I've really kind of learned from him, of like on how competitive he is. And it's not like it's a public, like I'm always trying to beat you at everything. But, you know, it's the little things that he really hones on the details. He studies more than anyone I know, and his intellectual like level is just higher than I've ever seen from any player. And because he's been doing it for such a long time,
right?
Too, you know, he's obviously had that comfortability and experience to back it up.
Yeah, he definitely sees things and outcomes from a different level of vision and a different level of belief, and he sees things before they happen. And my feeling is, from the 30,000-foot view, is that he has no doubt in the outcome of those situations going in, regardless of what happens. When he goes into the situation, he's going in with no doubt. And I think that's where you harness the powers of life, when you have that kind of faith and that kind of belief, and why he's pulled off so many. Well, he's not only had so many great consistent games, but pulled off so many great miracles. So that's great. Right. Does he have any pregame rituals that he does, or anything that he's consistent about in general?
He's pretty quiet, you know, sits in his locker, listens to whatever music, puts a towel over his head. You know, I think everyone kind of just does their own thing, you know. You know, some people like music, some people don't, whatever it may be. Like for me on game day, I just go with the flow. I'm very superstitiously not superstitious, if that makes sense.
It does. I love it.
So yeah. I don't want to feel like I have to rely on something to perform to the level I need to. If I don't get this stretch before the game, if I don't warm up this way, if I don't wear these shoes, if I don't, you know,
you don't want to get tied up in all that.
I don't want that to be the reasoning. So I'm always constantly changing stuff.
Love that.
With my pregame routine to prove myself that I don't, you know what I'm saying? I don't need
that. So you take it to the next step, where you purposely mix it up to demonstrate that it has nothing to do with that. I have the power within me, not some ritual.
Correct.
Or something I do.
Correct. You know, and there's definitely some consistency on like getting warmed up and stuff. Like for the music wise, you know, sometimes it's rap, sometimes it's a little bit more upbeat. You know, it's just kind of where I'm at throughout the week.
That's awesome.
One of my good friends, Manny, 5 is his artist name. You know, he makes music, and so sometimes I'm just listening to his stuff because in a sense, he's an extension of me, of with his music and how he carries himself and stuff. So I'm always switching up stuff.
That's Manny Wilkins, right?
Correct.
Yeah, played at Arizona State. I actually, when I was with the team back in 2014, he was a freshman. So yeah, Manny Wilkins, amazing young man. Yeah.
But yeah, I've never, like I said, I'm superstitiously, I don't know if that's a word.
Superstitious, not superstitious.
Yeah, right. Superstitiously not superstitious.
Right.
Because I don't want to become reliant on something.
Gotcha. Last question on Rodgers. What do you think is his best leadership trait?
How do I say this? He knows how to capture the energy in the room. He knows how to speak to everybody, and for him to have a conversation like this between you and I at a very moderate level, but also have 30 other guys around, and for it to carry the same amount of energy and weight and emphasis. And he knows every word that he says carries weight, and he makes sure to say the most needed words at the time for us to hear. And I think his poise, I think he's someone that has tremendous poise. And, I think the thing with him too, like going into Green Bay, was my idea of who Aaron Rodgers was only via television, only Sports Center, Twitter, whatever. And getting to know him and to see what they say on media as far as him being a teammate, what type of teammate he is, what type of player, how he carries himself, what thoughts that he has. All that was diminished when I met him. To see how he treated other people, to see how he treated his teammates, to see the level of standard that he held himself to, and that he consequently holds everyone else to that same level as well.
Yeah.
And because some people can't meet that level, and it's no one else's fault, but because they can't meet that level, it becomes into a blame thing of, you're too aggressive. You're too
right. They look for an excuse to avoid their
exactly.
own inability to get there. Yeah,
Exactly. So I think that, those three things about him are just, the best I've seen at least so far. And he continues to impress me and to show me new ways to be great.
Yeah, it's a trait of all great athletes. I'm sure, obviously, everybody watched The Last Dance during COVID, and Michael basically dragged those teams to championships, with the exception of maybe Pippen. He pretty much dragged a lot of the players that couldn't level up. He
Right.
brought them along with to those championships. So a couple more questions. I appreciate the time here, Alan. So we're
Absolutely. No,
almost
I
ready to
love
wrap.
this.
This has been incredible, an incredible conversation. I can't wait to actually listen to it again, actually, not outside of being involved in it. What advice do you have for any young athletes out there that are in high school or college, playing the game or playing any sport, who feel they might be overlooked, kind of like how you were, but they still have the dream that burns in them? What kind of advice would you give them?
My first advice to any high school athlete, any young kid, any athlete that's not high school or younger, would be, one, to play multiple sports. I think just the athleticism that you get from other sports translates well. Play as many sports as you can, be involved as much as you can, to figure out what you like too and what you don't like, as well as to kind of help strengthen you. But for anyone that isn't getting the college attention, or isn't, maybe not starting on their varsity team, you got to realize that nothing happens overnight. Nothing great or nothing worthy or valuable happens overnight. And that's something that I was able to kind of come to terms with, the whole going undrafted, not playing, not being a starter and whatnot, was that it was going to take time. It was going to take a lot of time. It was going to take a lot of sacrifice. It was going to take a lot of failure. And it was going to take me realizing I'm doing some things wrong, and be able to replace those bad habits, to improve on how I'm working out, on what I'm doing, what I'm attacking. And like I said, kind of at the beginning, in Jacksonville and in Green Bay, watch those who come before you. Watch the people that are successful. What are they doing? And mimic that.
Yeah, that was
I
great.
think that's what kind of gets overlooked nowadays, is that, like, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. Like, if someone goes and says that they can run a 5-minute mile, and the way they did that was that they ran 5 days a week at a 7-mile pace, to start off with, and they went to 6-minute pace, and they went to a 5-minute pace. If they said that this worked, then do it. Try it out.
So don't be afraid to explore
exactly
other ways of doing things.
Don't be afraid to explore it. And more so, it's just like, I feel like a lot of the answers to life in general are right in front of you.
Yeah.
It's just really whether like
Now
you
you're
are,
speaking. Yeah.
whether or not you're being receptive to the answers or
Yep.
not, and so in high school, it's hard to do that. It's hard to be able to be open,
Right.
and to accept, and to be able to digest that much information.
Right. But kids are getting more aware at a younger age of the mental side. And that was, one of the few final questions I have for you is, what have you learned about the mental side since you've been in the NFL, and how has that helped you, from a deeper perspective?
Yeah, the mental is really where I feel like that's where I make my biggest stride and my biggest strength. Um, like you said, the MJ documentary, hearing videos of Kobe and Tiger Woods, hearing stories of Aaron, years ago, other greats, like I kind of going off of what I just said, like if it ain't broke, don't fix it. Like this is what these guys were doing, this the success that they're having.
Right.
So I'm gonna go try that.
Yeah. And they're
I'm
sharing.
gonna do I'm gonna go mimic it exactly what they're doing and see if I can have the same results and same success.
Yeah. And with media today, they're sharing more of it, like Michael did on The Last Dance, and Kobe's got,
Right.
there's plenty of videos out there that are circulating of so much great wisdom that he offered about who he is. So you're right. The answers are always there. It's just about how bad you want it and how bad you're willing to work for it. And you definitely,
it's always within you. And I've always been someone that never believed in limits, never believed in defining things to be only one way, I guess, and just always challenging things,
right,
and always testing my limits.
That's awesome.
And pushing myself to different levels that I never even expected myself to be at.
Yeah, well, your life so far is the epitome of that, and I'm sure you're got to be excited to get going for the 21 season, depending on how that shakes out. But either way, it's not going to change your trajectory and what you're going to do, I'm sure, from your standpoint.
Absolutely not.
Yeah. Tell me lastly about your brand At the Top and what you're doing with that and off the field.
So At the Top, as you see, I'm rocking the new merchandise shirt that we got. So At the Top really kind of developed in high school for me. At the time, I was receiving offers and everything, and I felt that I was at the top. And I think that mindset that I was able to develop in high school of always trying to be at the top, always trying to be the best at whatever I did, helped me be successful. And inevitably kind of throughout the story that you've listened to the past hour or so, whatever it may be, that was at the top. That was the mindset. That was the motivation. That was the vulnerability. It all incorporates being at the top. But this brand I started is to share like stories and to be able to show that that I'm a human being. Just because you see me on Sundays with a the helmet and shoulder pads on, catching touchdowns, doing whatever, doesn't mean I'm not a human being, that I don't have mistakes, I don't have flaws. It's just that I'm able to persevere. I'm able to battle through those. And at the end of the day, I don't care what anyone else says about me because I know who I am. I know where my value is.
I know who I am. Now you're speaking my language there, right?
Right.
That is awesome. Well, I wish you all the success in the world with it. Congratulations on everything that you've done so far. I really appreciate you being on the podcast and sharing so much of this. You're definitely an inspiration, and there's a ton of wisdom flowing out you already. I can't imagine what it's going to be like, over the next 10 years of what I know is going to be an unbelievable continuation of your career. And I'm a fan for life. So I appreciate who you are at the core and what you do. And I really appreciate you being on the show today.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for having me. And I was glad and very humbled to be able to be on here and to be able to share my story. So thank you for having me.
Absolutely. Alan Lazard, thanks again. And everybody else, thanks for listening. And we'll be back with you real soon. So long.